Afternoon, everyone, congratulations to the IA for the UAE IA for organizing this wonderful event. We've been supporting this for the last 3-4 years, and extremely happy to be, attending this this year as well. So, I'm sure all of us, digitalization of processes is a big theme that is happening across all the organizations that we are working with, that we are all working for, and every organization is now adopting new age technologies like robotics, AI, ML, for automating processes and for bringing in efficiencies, in the across business processes and across business functions. So I thought what we'll try and address with the session today is at what level of digitalization are we as an internal audit fraternity at? Have we tried to automate and digitalize our internal audit processes, or are we still following, the earlier old age typical internal audit work, that we were all doing from so long? So. Uh, as part of the internal audit execution life cycle, all of us typically, spend almost 60 to 70% of our time on audit execution. Once we are through with the planning and identifying focus areas, etc., that's when we, almost 60-70% of our time really goes into audit execution. So the three streams there are typically data collection, data analytics, and reporting. So we start off with data collection, where we identify what is the relevant data for the test that we are supposed to do. What is the source system from which that data has to come in, and then we typically start following up with the process owners and the business people to try and get that data. Now, once that data comes in, we then get into analytics and running our audit tests. We identify the risks, we identify what controls to be tested, what are the audit steps to be done, and we there are quite a few organizations that are doing continuous control monitoring. So they would have analytical queries to execute those tests, and once the exceptions come out, we then spend quite a lot of time on debating, discussing risk ratings with the auditees, and then drawing up audit reports either in Word or PowerPoint presentations. These then get uploaded onto the audit management systems, and then get reported to either senior management or the board, etc. So this is where 60 to 70% of our overall time is going. And by and large, all of this is a manual process. There's not real end-to-end automation across all of these three streams that's currently happening. So if I were to just break these up into three individual streams, how exactly is data collection happening, and currently what are some of the practices that we are doing in terms of trying to get the data for doing our audits? So obviously the most common one is for us to write emails to the process owners and keep following up with them, keep chasing them, and try to get data from them. There are times when when we look at non-standard reports. That's where we there are IT requests that are raised for producing customized reports for us. So sometimes data comes from there. There are organizations that have implemented the likes of data warehouse solutions. There we typically, through the IT teams, or if we have access to the data warehouse directly, we also try to get some of the data from the data warehouse. A lot of times there is unstructured data that is not part of any system in terms of MIS and Excel spreadsheets, etc. So a lot of data comes from there. And then there is quite a few times when we are also looking at email-based data, where a lot of the approvals are sometimes sitting in emails and not and we request the process owners for those emails. So that's another way in which we are getting data. There's quite a few organizations that have implemented the likes of, let's say, an ACL Exchange server, which is sometimes able to connect to systems and pull some information. SAP HANA is again, for organizations that are on SAP. The SAP HANA module is able to get information from all the rest of the SAP modules and collate all the information on the HANA module. Again, sometimes the challenge there is that it's only able to address the SAP related data, but not really outside of the other applications being used outside of SAP. Those don't get addressed with that. And then, like I mentioned, a lot of organizations have a data lake or a data warehouse, where internal auditors are sometimes allowed access to extract ready reports that are available. And also sometimes, specially customized reports from an internal audit perspective are also configured on the data warehouse. Now, what is the challenge with this process currently? So, by and large, this is a manual process, where there is a lot of follow-ups that happen with the process owners. There is a lot of back and forth. Sometimes the data that comes in is not complete. At other times, when it comes in, it's not accurate. There are some fields that are missing. So, a lot of times there is a significant amount of time that gets wasted in trying to continuously keep on following up for the data. And at times, we're also not always sure of the integrity or the completeness or accuracy of that data. Sometimes you have to go back to source systems to validate on a sample basis whether the data that you've received is actually correct or not. And then also, if we are raising IT requests for non-structured, non-standard reports, there is a cost element to those CRs that get created for generating specific reports. So by and large, I think across most organizations, almost 80-90% of the organizations, this leg of the audit execution cycle is primarily a manual process. Now, once we get the data, how is it that we are currently doing our analytics? So, obviously we've been using Excel and Excel for the longest time. So I think still 60-70% of the work that most people do still happens on Excel. And, when there is voluminous data involved, people use Microsoft Access and SQL. You can set up queries on SQL. There are organizations that are also using ACL. Alteryx is again a solution that quite a few have been using. And then SAP HANA I spoke about. So, where SAP data is involved, you can set up the analytics on HANA itself. And then Power BI again has become quite a popular solution, where a lot of organizations use Power BI to execute the analytical tests. So now, what is the challenge again with this? For a lot of these analytical tools, there is very specific query writing capability that is required. So if you look at SQL, one needs to know how to write SQL queries to be able to do analytics through SQL. So you need a specialized resource with SQL query writing capability to be able to do that. Similarly, ACL has its own query writing, language. So you need to write ACL specific queries. Same for Microsoft Access and again for some of the other solutions. So while a lot of organizations are now using some of these tools and technologies for continuous control monitoring and for executing analytics on large volume of data, etc. But still, the adoption rate has not been very wide, if I can call it that, because again, you need niche technical query writing capability for doing this. So, a lot of organizations, for example, have specialized, one or two people who are very specifically, with technical capability to for SQL query writing and for writing queries on ACL, etc. You have those kind of members who keep on doing these tests, but then every time you have to add a new test, every time you need some kind of customization, all the rest of the team has then got to go back to this set of people to go and modify your existing queries. So that's generally the practice that is currently available, on the analytics side. And if we then move on to reporting, again here I think more than 90% plus of organizations are currently using either Microsoft Word reports or PowerPoint reports. All the most of the audit committee senior management reporting that typically happens is either in the form of a Word report or a PowerPoint presentation. Where again there is it has to be manually done by individuals. You look at what your audit exceptions are, audit queries are, and you then go keep setting up. You keep all of us keep making presentations overnight and presenting them to senior management, etc. There are organizations that are using Tableau and also Power BI, which give very strong visualization capability. So when you have exceptions. One can set up various visualization templates in which those exceptions can be viewed. So for Tableau and Power BI from that perspective are quite useful solutions. But again, this is all manual. So, you have to get the data first, you have to execute the analytics first, then somebody has to manually upload that data onto these tools. And, then somebody has to manually configure the visualization template in which you want to look at it. So it's very time consuming, it's very individual user dependent, and it's very manual. So if I were to look at all the three streams, and if you look at the common themes across all the three streams, while a lot of people have tried to do continuous control monitoring, but still, most of these three streams still are still sitting in individual silos, right? They don't talk to each other, so there's a lot of manual handshake between data collection to the analytics to the reporting. While your analytical tools are able to help with execution of the audit queries, of your audit exceptions, but there is nothing integrated that helps you get information, conduct the analytics, and then eventually report the analytics. So I think the way out of the current approach, and with the current approach, it's not really what you can call as automation. So there is querying capability, etc., but it's not really audit execution automation. If one can call it that. So the way to probably approach this could be a unified approach where all of the three streams sit on one single platform. One can create bots for data collection where the bots connect to source systems like SAP, Oracle, CRM systems, any major system, and pull out any kind of standard reports. And obviously there are sometimes concerns about security and how those bots would behave. But these are non-intrusive bots that don't have any with just view access, report extraction access, with no capability to really tamper with existing data. So one can create connectors to connect to any source system, and pull out information from the system. In case there is unstructured data, it can be placed. The bot can be programmed to actually connect to a shared location or any path where the data has been placed, and then pick up the data from that source path. So that's how data collection can be automated. It removes the entire reliance on following up with process owners repeatedly and trying to get the right set of data from them. Now, once the data is imported onto the platform, you can you again one doesn't really need to have technical query writing capability to be able to set up queries on this kind of a system. There is a front end query builder capability where most of lay users, anybody who understands Excel, for example, will be able to go set up queries by themselves. You define the checks that you want to execute, the data on which you want to execute those checks. You can set up those analytical tests, and it's a one-time configuration. It can be scheduled, etc., and the audit tests are automatically then executed. And then once the exceptions are out, reporting can also be configured on this kind of a integrated platform. So, there are multiple tabular templates, there are multiple graphical templates in which you can do a one-time configuration of how exactly you want to visualize that data. And the system, once set up, will then automatically be able to will continuously keep publishing the exception reports or the dashboards in the predefined templates that have been configured. Now, the other way that this can also work is that a lot of organizations use audit management systems, and sometimes the audit queries are issued through those audit management systems. So the bot, for example, the reporting bot can connect to an audit management system, log into the audit management system, get into the audit query tab, upload the audit exceptions to the audit query tab, and actually through automation send out the audit query to the to the auditees. So working papers, etc., everything can be updated using the bot itself instead of all of us do this manually currently, and it eliminates the manual work involved. Alternately, from the platform, the exceptions can also be directly emailed to pre-configured email IDs. Whether directly to the audit team initially, and once all of us have comfort that it's working well, it could then be sent out to the auditees directly as well. So this is typically how an integrated system can work with a unified approach for all the three audit execution streams. So just to talk about how what it covers, the platform will automatically, like I said, extract and validate files from different source systems. Once the data has been extracted, different analytical parameters, different validation checks, audit steps that we typically do in Excel, etc., those can be automated and configured and set up on the platform. The analytics can be then executed as per predefined parameters and as per a specific schedule. The exceptions can be, the reporting templates can be pre-configured and with prior naming convention of the exception files, etc. And then finally, they can be emailed to various people directly or updated onto the audit management system. So now, how exactly does this work? What's the approach typically that one will need to adopt to deploy this kind of an audit automation system, right? So basically, for the starting point is a risk control matrix or audit programs, that all of us do for every audit execution. Line by line, one will have to sit and map what are the audit tests, what is the data that is required for each audit test, what is the source system from which that data will come, whether the audit test is automatable or not automatable. So that level of mapping will have to first be created on each audit program or on each risk control matrix. Now, once that has been done, then for every line item, there will be three sets of bots that will be created, and this is all available on the system and very easily doable. So the data collector bot will, that is where you will set up what system it needs to connect to. So SAP, Oracle, CRM systems, Salesforce, different systems, data warehouses, etc. And the bot can be programmed to go into specific tabs and extract information for a specific period. And at a specific schedule. So depending on the frequency at which you want to extract or the data or the frequency at which you want to execute that specific validation, the bot will automatically go and fetch data at that frequency. So daily, weekly, fortnightly, monthly, how often, depending on the criticality and the materiality of the test, how often you want to do that test. Now, then once the data has come in, there will be an analytics bot that will have to be created. The analytics bot, like I explained, will have all capability of executing various validation checks. And once the output is ready, then the reporting bot will come into play. Where you can set up the reporting templates in which the visualization templates in which you want to see the final set of exceptions. So on every single line item of the risk control matrix or the audit program, these bots will be configured, and I will get you onto the system to show you how exactly that works. Now, this is how the typically the data collector bot will look like. So it's compatible with multiple data formats. It could import Excel files, it could import database files, text files, PDF files. So there is no real limitation on the nature of the source file. And like I explained, there's auto schedulers, so you can schedule when the data has to be picked up, in case there is a non-standard report that is not a standard report from a system, it could then connect to a source a path or a shared path, like an SFTP folder. It will log into an SFTP folder and pull out information from that folder directly as well. So I thought instead of laboring too much on the theoretical concept, we'll probably just try and show you how exactly this kind of a bot will typically work. So in this example that you're seeing on the screen, this is one where the bot is going to log on to SAP, and like a normal user ID would do with just read-only access. It will put in the username, the password, it will get on to the system, and this entire sequence of putting in the username first, the password, then what tabs to put in. So you're seeing now that it's executing a specific T code, like all of us would do as an individual user. It has now then gotten into a vendor GL, so it's trying to extract a vendor GL. It has selected the company code, the period for which the GL is required. So all of this can be programmed, and now you can see the GL on the screen, and once it's available, this can then be extracted, like an Excel sheet, from where then it can then be imported onto the platform for audit execution. So this is an example of how the system is able to connect to different source applications, key applications within the organization, and pull out information. And it just completely eliminates the need for writing emails, or continuously calling and following up with auditees to get data. Now, this is typically, how the analytics bot works, and like I'd explained, one doesn't really need to have technical query writing capability like in SQL or Access, etc., to be able to set up these analytical validations. So this is a front-end query builder capability, where all your typical conditional statements, contains, doesn't contain, starts with, equal to, not equal to, all of those can be configured from the front end itself. All your aggregate functions, all your lookup functions, where you have to put joins on different files and different data sets. All of those can be easily configured from the front end query builder itself. And any kind of complex merging, lookups, etc., all of those can be set up on the query builder itself. And again, one can schedule when this test has to be executed and how it will be executed. So again, this is a one-time configuration for every test, and once it has been set up, then the system obviously keeps executing it by itself. So again, a quick example of how this works. So in the video that you're seeing on the screen, this is all of us do procure to pay audits, and I think one of the key checks that we do as part of a procure to pay review is verify whether the same material code has been procured from either the same or different vendors, at different rates. You can do this over a 6-month period or a 12-month period, and we can all define thresholds beyond which this becomes a reportable exception. So we can program the validation to say, if the variation is beyond, let's say, 10%, 15%, 20%, whatever is the acceptable level, that is when the exception should be thrown out. So on the left hand side of the query builder, you see the purchase order dump. So the collector bot has worked, and the purchase order dump has been imported. And what you're now seeing on the screen is how the query can be built, and how the validation can be set up. So, it has calculated the maximum price at which the same material code has been procured. It has also calculated, the minimum price at which the material has been procured. And once that difference comes up, the validation will check for the range of the difference, and it will also calculate the average price, and then as an incremental check, like I explained, it will calculate, if the difference is, let's say, more than 20%. So, in the example on there, you just saw 20%. So it will only throw up cases where the same material has been procured from, either the same or the multiple vendors over a period of time at a price variation of more than 20%. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be, a reportable issue straight away, but it's a flag, whereas auditors, for example, once we do the initial analytics, we then obviously have to then go and root cause and discuss and validate whether this is a reportable issue or not. So, this is how easy or difficult it is to configure this kind of validation on the system. And like I explained, once the query has been set up, this is the SQL query that gets generated, and it also gives an option of previewing the exception results, so that one is sure that the validation check has been accurately built at this stage itself. So once this has been set up, then we get down to reporting. Like I said, there are multiple options of looking at the exceptions. So there are tabular templates here, where you can configure how exactly you want to view the exception, what columns you want, what fields that need to be there, and all of this can be sorted, etc. And then one can also configure all of these exceptions to be viewed in a graphical template. So there are multiple charting options, where the exceptions can be viewed on the system directly. And then obviously they can be downloaded. They can be, all the exceptions are linked to a risk control checkpoint, and different dashboards can be created for individual users. So every user can, depending on their area, can create a personalized my dashboard. So if you think that these are the 5 or 10 checkpoints that you want to view on a daily basis every day when one logs on to the system, you will see these dashboards pre-populated with fresh data on a daily basis. So you can do different kinds of trending of exceptions over various periods, and it gives you multiple capability. So again, not to labor on the theory, but to actually show how this works. This is now how the exceptions come out in the tabular template. You can see various columns, and field values. So this is continuation of the same example where the price variance that you see here is more than 20%. So the same material code is procured from different vendors at this kind of a price variance. The data can be sorted. It can be downloaded directly. It can be once it can be downloaded onto an Excel sheet, where you can then do all kinds of further validations if required. And then it also has charting capability, like I'd explained. That's where charts can be created. So this is how typically a chart can be configured. You can give the chart a title, and then there are multiple chart types that can be used. Bar charts, pie chart, donut, stack chart. So typically most of the charting options that are available, those can be set up. You can define what you want to see on the x-axis, what you want to see on the y-axis, and add whether you want the sum or the average price or the maximum price or the minimum price. And it's like you can see on the screen, it's not a very complex configuration. This is a one-time setup, and once this has then been set up, you simply just save it, and on the system you can then view it as a chart. And there are then further slicing and dicing options here. So you can If you so on the chart here, you're looking at what is the minimum price, the maximum price, and the average price at which the material has been procured. And you can then strike off and slice and dice with the data as well. And this is the one where I'd explained that you could create personalized dashboards for specific data points that one wants to keep on looking at. So this is typically how the reporting can be designed. Now, once different processes have been created and the RCMs have been set up on the system, this is how a typical process tree, an RCM tree for an organization looks like. There are different functions, and you can then drill down into each function. You will get down to the RCM, and against each RCM, there will be a mapping of what are the audit tests that can be automated, cannot be automated. So practically, the entire process and the RCM repository of the organization can sit on this kind of a system, and it can become almost like the audit execution engine for the organization. So there are quite a few industries, where the entire controlled repository has already been set up and configured onto the system. So the example that you see currently is life insurance, where all your life insurance processes like agent onboarding, claims payout, commissions payout, IT processes, compliance processes, policy servicing, reinsurance processes, treasury, underwriting, etc. All of these are available as a ready repository on the system. So 900 plus risks typically, of which, as per current mapping, there is a pre-populated library of almost 400 plus checkpoints that has already been automated. Obviously, it'll have to be customized to the data formats of every organization. But as a basic audit test with pre-configured logic, etc., there is a pre-populated library that is already available. Then similarly for various capital market entities like brokerages, different processes there, client relations, front office, risk management operations, HR, mutual fund distribution, investment banking. Again, here there is a pre-populated library of almost 150 plus controls with various, automated data points that is already available. Then similarly for telecom setups, the control universe of almost 900 plus controls and associated risks, with almost 700 plus control points with ready automation pre-populated libraries. That's again something that is already available on the tool. And then similarly for manufacturing setups as well, all manufacturing processes, production, sales, marketing, inventory, warehousing, etc. So almost some 300 plus controls and risks, and almost 180 plus automated checkpoints on the manufacturing side as well. Now again, these are all model repositories. Obviously, every time that one would go to an organization, the process will be different. The RCMs and the risks and controls will be different. Different systems will be there. Data formats will be different. So all of those obviously have to be customized, but at least as a starting point, all of this is already available as a repository. Now, similarly, this is for infrastructure providers. So, all your typical energy operations, maintenance processes, site acquisition, deployment, all of those are also available as a model repository. Now, again, interestingly, all of us do different IT audits. So, the entire library and repository for IT audits is again something that is available as a library on the system. So all your key IT processes like backup management, BCPDR, change management, data center processes, incident management, log management, privileged user ID management, etc. All of these with detailed RCMs with mapping of what can be automated, cannot be automated, bots already available and configured. These are all available, as a registry repository on the system. And once all of this is available on one single unified platform, one is able to see an organization level control dashboard, right? So on the screen, for example, you're able to see different departments. So for a single organization, these are the different departments. So compliance, customer service, supply chain, finance, regulatory, sales, etc., etc. and the corresponding control inventory for processes of that department. And then on the right hand side, you see the failed count control. That's where the system, whatever validations that it is performing for each control, it is populating how many controls have worked, how many controls have not worked, how many controls have failed. And at an org level, one is able to report that, let's say out of 1000 controls, how many controls are working, how many controls are not working. Now you can imagine the powerful reporting that one is able to do with this kind of a dashboard. If you publish this dashboard to senior management on a monthly basis, you can do trending of what functions are working well, what processes are working well, what controls are continuously failing, not failing, what are the different reasons why it is working or not working. Uh, so the reporting capability is significantly enhanced for any internal audit setup. Yeah. And from this overall org level dashboard, one could actually drill down to what are the, so in the example you can see supply chain showing 170 controls and 62 failed counts. So this will then give you all the line items of all the 62 controls that have failed. It talks about what are the total number of rows where the transactions have been processed, how many exceptions have come in that row, what is the percentage failure. And then one could actually then drill down to the last mile actual transaction level data, where the control failure has been done. So reporting capability is significantly enhanced with this kind of organization level control dashboarding. Now, just a couple of quick case studies. This is for a large telecom organization where the internal audit department has worked on this kind of automation, almost 100, 150 plus controls that have been automated and set up on the system. The system is automatically connecting to these source applications, pulling out data, executing the analytics, and then publishing the results. And then this is another one for a big retail chain, which is a garment retailing organization. Now, one would need to do a detailed level of store analytics, sales analytics, to really understand what products are going off the shelf, not going off the shelf. As internal audit, I think that's one of the key things that one does as part of any retail setup. So just a quick example of how this has been configured. So this is a case where they're looking at on a daily basis what is the sales that is being done at each store, what is the various inventory categories that are selling, not selling, at a regional level, at a overall geography level, and then at an overall org level, different sales based analytics. And once all of these reports are automated and published from the system, one can then configure various validation checkpoints, commissions being paid to the stores, commissions being paid to the store personnel, at a reasonable level, how various inventory levels are performing, not performing, how much inventory is available for different items. So all of those analytics that typically all of us take reports from these base systems and then do on Excel sheets, etc. Those kind of control based sales based analytics can be easily configured on the system, and it then publishes these dashboards, which can then be sent out to the auditees directly. Now, this was an example of analytics. Now, this is how OCR can be used for internal audit. So, a lot of us look at various digital templates, and as long as there is actual data available in Excel sheets, etc., we are still able to run analytics. But a lot of times, when there are digital templates involved, we do get stuck. So all of us that are coming from, let's say, banking organizations or financial service or telecom organizations, even electrical utilities, public utilities, there is a mandatory need to do KYC validation. So KYC audits, for example, become a big part of the tests that happen. Now, using OCR capability, one is able to look at any digital template like a national ID or a passport, or a driving license, pull out information using OCR, pick out information from that template, and then validate against what is there, in your current customer database, and confirm whether it actually matches or not. Similarly, quite a few of the regulators have a requirement of facial, matching. So, where as a customer they require taking a live photograph of the customer, and then the expectation is that that photograph is matched against the specimen photograph on a national ID document or on let's say a passport. So using OCR techniques, again facial recognition techniques, one is able to pull out this information, pull out the photographs and match versus what is there on the facial recognition. And then similarly, it can also do signature validation, where specimen signatures can be matched against or what somebody has signed off on an invoice or an agreement, etc. Now, this is just a quick example of how this can be configured. So the case that you see here is a UAE national ID, where on the system there are coordinates that are mapped for the fields that are required. So let's say the ID number is here in the center. So, one can map the coordinates where the ID number will be found on the document. Similarly, where the name will be found, where the nationality will be found, on the back of the ID, what kind of information will be picked up. And it then you can, once this information is extracted, then you can obviously validate versus your existing database. Like this, multiple ID templates can be mapped, and this entire KYC validation, for example, can be automated. Now, the this is another example of when I said how does the system log on to source applications and extract information from source applications. So again, one doesn't need to be very technically proficient to create these bots. These bots can be created directly by lay users like all of us, and it can be set up on the system. So what kind of checks to be extracted, what is to be put in on the drop down menu, input parameters like name, user ID, how those can be inserted. So
last couple of minutes, Apurva.
yeah, sure. So and this is an example where it has logged on to an electricity company's website, and it is pulling out PDF copies of invoices, and then using OCR, the invoices, the data from the invoices will be extracted onto an Excel sheet, and this is then typically how it looks like. So another example of how data can be extracted using a QR code reader and then matched with what is there on vendor invoices. So finally, just a couple of slides now. Why should one be using robotics for internal audits? So obviously, enhanced productivity. Almost 60 to 70% of the audit universe can be automated. The level of assurance that you're able to offer is significantly higher because you're covering so much more data. The accuracy level goes up significantly, and the audit procedures are standardized. The auditor's time is spent on root causing and value adding activities rather than on mundane execution. It's a global application, so using the same system you could work across geographies, across processes, across functions, and those are some of the benefits that can come from this kind of a platform. And then finally, a lot of times we keep getting asked this question that if bots are going to do internal audit, what's going to happen to the internal auditor? What is it that the internal auditor is going to do? So, the role of the auditor will obviously change. Instead of, doing every single data point validation, audit check, etc., you will have to ensure that the controls that are being automated and put in on the platform are comprehensive. Any new and emerging risk scenarios are factored in onto the system. What is the frequency at which validation for each of these controls should be done? what is, one will have to keep doing sample testing of the controls to confirm, that the accurate validation checks have been set up on the system, and obviously then focus on how actions are being taken, on the various risks and exceptions that have been identified. And then there will be some element of controls that will always be non-automatable, 10 to 20% that cannot be automated. Keep focusing on some of those critical items there. So yeah, that's what I had today on the session. I hope it helps everybody understand how robotics and these new age technologies can be used for the internal audit work that we are doing here.
Apurva, thank you very much. If you can just take a look at your private messages, probably that will give you a good indication.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think one of the questions that we keep getting asked often is, how is it that what is that approach for implementing this kind of a system? Does one go process by process? Does one identify some key set of controls and start with that? And the response from our side typically is that it really depends on how you want to take it. If one doesn't want to start off in a very big way, it's best to identify across different processes, across different functions, what are the top 50, top 100 key controls that are worthy of putting in through an automation kind of an environment. And those could be across different processes. And we then start off with, an organization can start off with putting in those 50 or 100 top controls, build different validation logics, build connectors for different source systems from which that data will come from. And then keep once one is able to see the benefit in terms of the enhanced coverage or the level of automation or the accuracy that is coming in, then obviously one can then keep progressing and keep expanding this solution. So start small, look at the benefits, understand how it is helping, and the level of accuracy and efficiency that it is able to bring, and then obviously keep extending onto as many processes and as many systems that one wants to.
Okay. Apurva, thank you very much. That was really very informative. Coming from an IT background myself, I really enjoyed it. And I'm sure the participants would have enjoyed it as well, especially with some live cases that you demonstrated. The proof of the pudding is in eating it, as they say. And I think everybody must have really gotten a clear message in it. So thank you very much once again for joining us and giving this lively presentation, keeping it very relevant to today's environment with your case studies as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Today's track is sponsored by CRO UAE, and the speaker is Fahim Al Musa, who is a Director of Internal Audit and Accounting Advisory at CRO UAE. Fahim will be talking about the internal audit scope in the COVID-19 era. Kindly note, ladies and gentlemen, that you have to choose the translation or the language required from the interpretation section, whether you want to listen to him in English or you want the translation in Arabic. Thank you very much for your support and looking forward to listen to Mr. Fahim. Mr. Fahim, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, dear, very much. Welcome, everybody. It's a great pleasure to meet all of you, Your Excellencies, and dear ladies and gentlemen. Actually, it feels, weird to speak to a laptop since the beginning of the year, or since February at least. We're working on and off, mainly remotely, and in a lot of instances from home. And this is actually the first virtual conference that uh, we can try this year. It feels weird that when you talk to a laptop instead of talking to actual people, but hopefully you'll get some information from this session, and it's always a pleasure to meet with you either virtually or in person. Now, our topic today, we'll talk about the internal audit scope in the COVID era. So what is the COVID era? Actually, we hear a lot of talk about how the world is going to change post-COVID. Now, I believe we want to put things in context that the world has already changed since the end of last year with all these economic, and social changes that we are facing, and the new norms that we are getting used to. That we all hope, as normal human beings, that they will end soon, and we don't have to keep on wearing our masks and so on forever. And now with the new hopes that with the vaccines that are going out in the UK and the US, so hopefully in the near future we'll be back to normal again, and we'll be back to uh, um, you know meeting and interacting more naturally with each other. Now, for the this topic that we are talking about, we want to see what is the impact of this pandemic on the internal audit score. So the internal audit, as you know, is a function that exists in a lot of companies. Sometimes it's mandatory, sometimes it's by choice of the owners or the shareholders of the company. So when we do internal audit, what we are talking about actually? When we talk about internal audit, we're talking about somebody who wants to give us some assurance about our internal control structure. So what is our internal control structure? Actually, it's the structure. It's like if you look at it as, suppose that you are looking at a building, the internal control for a building is, you know, the infrastructure of it. Without it, it cannot be a complete building. So the internal control is the backbone, okay, of any company. It's the built-in rules and regulations and controls that help the company achieve its objectives. So now, when you have a pandemic situation, everything is changing, and so the internal audit, which aims at auditing that internal control structure. So to start with, we want to see, what have changed, this year. Let us talk about the internal audit scope and the objective of internal audit. Okay. Now, the objective of internal audit is the same. The objective of internal audit is to provide assurance, as I just said earlier, okay, on the adequacy of the whole control environment. Now, the objective of internal audit did not change during the pandemic. We still want to provide this assurance, okay? But now, in order to start from the beginning and not to lose track, as I always do, okay, because I just start mixing the information sometimes. Although internal audit objective is still the same, but scope focus is not. So more uncertainty due to this pandemic situation. Okay. Now we have tougher liquidity. We have doubts about our ability to continue as a going concern. So you see these major changes, okay, will force a change in the internal audit scope, because eventually we cannot distinct ourselves as internal auditors from the company, even though we say that we are independent and we are like, but independent and the meaning that we don't, okay, do execution of the work, but we do provide assurance about the execution of the work. This means we do serve, okay, the same objectives, and we want to achieve the same objectives as the management of the company, okay, but from a different angle. So when the whole situation changes, okay, this means we have to adapt to this whole situation. We have liquidity issues. We have a lot of companies who are terminating employees. We have doubts about our ability, okay, at the individual level and at the corporate level to continue as a going concern. A lot of people lost their jobs during this year. Now, this whole abnormal situation, okay, will force a change in the scope. Now, usually you will just put your plan, okay? It's like everybody's doing risk assessment. I don't think that we still have some companies who don't do risk-based internal audit planning. Now, so let us agree that we all do risk assessment, risk-based audit, okay? But the main risk has changed. Now, the risks that used to be valid 2019, they are not valid 2020. The main risk globally, let's say, it's our ability as companies to continue as a going concern. So the main focus should be on this, okay? The main focus should be on our ability to continue as a going concern. So the objective, we want to provide this assurance, okay? But we don't want to start digging on the small details. You want to focus on the major thing, on the ability to continue as a going concern. Suppose that you are an outsourced internal auditor, okay, and you are going to audit a family-owned company, let's say. Now you want to check this company's ability to continue their business. You don't want to tell them that you have these small things here and you have to make some adjustments there. You want to focus on the main thing, which is the continuity. Now, the continuity is related to all parts of the business. If you check the financial part or the operational part, it has something to do with this continuity. So you want to make sure that measures were taken and are in place to ensure the continuity of the business. Okay, so this is the major thing that we will put in the planning process. So how do we do actually the planning process? We start number one by analyzing the risk. If we have a risk department, we say, okay, let us create a risk register. So what do I mean by a risk register? The risk register actually is like you know, the small activity book that we used to use at school or to university, but with different columns where you write, okay, what is the area you are talking about, what is the risk involved, okay, and what is the percentage of that risk, whether it's high or medium or low, okay. So out of this risk register identifies all these either weaknesses or gaps in the control structure. We take this book, okay. If we don't have a risk function, it's the responsibility of the internal auditor to create this risk book, okay, for the sake of developing the audit plan. So we take this risk book, and from it we develop our annual internal audit plan. Now that major risk that came this year, the risk of our ability to continue as a going concern, has entered in each individual risk. Okay, so we have to account for this new risk in our planning. So this is what we are talking about, you know, in this presentation. So the COVID era has this new risk that was integrated, which is our continuity. This does not mean that we don't have other risks. We still have these other risks, but some of these risks were diluted due to the fact that we have a much bigger risk, or we will prioritize this risk, okay, then start with the other risks. Because as you know, when you put the audit plan, you start with the high risk, then medium, then low. Now the high risk that have something to do, because if you cannot continue as a going concern, what is the point of doing internal audit? You don't need internal audit, you don't need anything. You just want to make sure that you are surviving. Suppose like if somebody has like late stages of cancer, sorry for this ugly example, okay, then after he's worried whether he has like 20,000 or 40,000 in the bank. You don't worry about this. You know, if you are dying, I mean, there is something, you know, that more important than you go down with the grade of importance. Now, so the first thing, you continue as a going concern. The second thing, your major risk, then your medium risk, and so on and so forth. So this is what we need to do. Actually, I've checked, you know, out of, you know, the people we are working with, there was some confusion in the internal audit departments how to change the internal audit plan for this year. Some companies, to be honest, they just kept on business as usual without great consideration for that ability to continue as a going concern. And these companies, they ended up, after they saw the bad impact of the pandemic, okay, they figured out that they need to rethink this plan that they have made for this year. So they went back and changed their projections for next year. Because this planning that we are talking about, it's not only 2020, it's the mindset, because actually you are living and not imagining that we can have a pandemic situation. Now we do have this because we've tried it ourselves. So now this change in the scope actually will be ongoing, because this is a risk that you need to consider, when you plan your audit. So in the post-COVID-19 era, you'll have more focus as internal auditors, as my colleagues were talking about robotics, on the importance of digitalization. As Dr. Abu Azali rightly said this morning, that we are still back compared to our clients when it comes to technology. We are back. We are not fully digitalized. You have a lot of companies who are 100% automated, and you have several auditors who are still more or less not doing manually, but let's see semi-manually type of work when it comes to internal audit. So we need to be more focused on investing in technology, because the future is mainly now this year proved to us that technology is number one priority for any company. We stayed, some people they stayed several weeks, some others they stayed several months working from home, and we were in need to have internet. So we have to stress on the importance of internet access. Should be a human right for all the people, actually, because everybody needs internet. Now, a lot of small kids at school, they cannot access their online classes because they don't have internet. Now, anybody who wants, somebody like me who works with internet, if you need something, you want to search online, if you don't have internet, you cannot do it. Now, all the type of research that you want to do at the individual level, you need the internet for it. To communicate with your friends and families and the outside world, you will need the internet. So it's become very important to have, as number one, the internet, then the digital platform for your business, for your personal life. You do need a digital platform. Now, wherever you go, like imagine that if you are going, even in the cities now, like big city like Dubai, if you want to go from one place to another, even if you're living here since 20 years, like myself, okay, you will need in more than 50% of the cases to use the Google Maps or Waze or whatever applications that shows you the way. Now, we cannot live without the technology. Same thing applies to the internal audit. Internal audit cannot keep on doing manual work. We need to digitalize, okay? So, um, back again, to the structure of the presentation, just to put you more in context. Now, we said that the objective of the internal audit did not change, okay? Because the main objective is to provide that assurance. That providing assurance did not change, but actually, um, on the adequacy of the whole control environment. Now, what is the control environment? The comprehensive set of actions taken by management that set the tone for how employees engage in their day-to-day activities. Okay. Now, this whole thing is the control environment. It's comprised of all policies and procedures, the actions taken by management to deal with issues, and the values they adopt. Now, the scope of internal audit, now, not it used to be. Let us just make it simple. Now, this is the traditional scope. What you can see in the screen is the examination and evaluation of the adequacy and effectiveness of the organization's governance, risk management, and internal process. So this is the scope of internal audit as per the IPPF standards, the standards adopted by, globally, let's say. Okay. Now, what we have changed this year, but we did not replace, we just prioritized. We are saying examination and evaluation of the organization's ability to continue as a going concern. Now, if you take this thread, then we go back to the previous slide, plus the adequacy and effectiveness of the organization's governance, okay? This will be the major change that we have made this year. Now, why we have made this change? As I said previously, without being able to continue, there is no need to do the rest of the process. There is no need to do the rest of the process. Okay. Now, um, having said that, now when you talk about quality, my colleagues were talking about quality of performance. Okay, actually, quality of performance is something very, very essential to the internal auditors. Okay, and some internal audit departments, they do overlook the quality of performance. They just focus on controls and whether we are doing a good job in maintaining our controls and we have proper control structure, but they forgot about the quality. Now, the importance of the quality comes actually from the fact if you don't maintain the quality, this can negatively impact your ability to continue as a going concern. Okay? Because you want to achieve your organization state objectives. Okay? So you have to maintain certain level of quality, or at least the minimum level of quality acceptable. So as we said, okay, the examination and evaluation of the organization's ability to continue as a going concern. If you can write down this only phrase written in red, it will help you in your next year audit plan. We need to consider it as CAEs, that we need to consider our ability to continue as a going concern. Same thing, like if you are preparing your financial statements, considering that you are continuing as a going concern, which is the natural, the standard thing. Okay, you'll use the usual standards. Now, if you want to prepare your financial statements, considering that you won't be able to continue as a going concern, this means you are being you'll be discontinued, okay, in the near future. So you'll need to use another set of standards, liquidation standards, which is completely different than the natural standards the external auditors and the CFOs they are used to. Okay, so same thing applies to internal audit. First thing, continue as a going concern. Then second thing, go to governance, go to built-in controls, go to all these areas. Now, what have we learned? Actually, we need to understand basically what have we learned. That the pandemic has prioritized baby steps. Now, what do I mean by baby steps? Baby steps is back to basics. Now, you start number one by saying that we need to be profitable. We need to be controlled. We need to be secured. We need to be able to continue and surviving and living. I'm talking about as a company, okay? And as individuals within the company, okay? So these baby steps, because of the pandemic, okay, brought us back to the, old days when the world had, the previous pandemics 100 years back or so on, okay? So this reminds us of, these difficult times of the World War, after the World War One, then the Spanish flu, and all these things that we forgot already. Now we can see that this can happen anytime. Okay. Now, the other thing is that sustainability has become the main driver for IFL. Now, let me say that in a lot of companies, you can see it like in different countries that there was a termination of employees and companies. And unfortunately, this termination happened in a lot of internal audit functions because until now, some companies they don't perceive the actual value of internal auditors. Maybe we are not doing a good job, showing to the people what is the importance of our function. Maybe we just keep on, I said we means as internal auditors, just keep on repeating ourselves. Maybe we provide like some marginal points. It's not like that does not show the actual value of the work, because some people they can be very intelligent and very smart, but they cannot show this in their reports. But so the management, when they say, or the audit committee, when they see the report, they don't see value added points. They will see, well, why do we have internal auditors? So let us decrease the number of internal auditors, or let us cancel the function if it's not mandatory by law, like the listed companies. The listed companies, they cannot just close the internal audit and go. They have to have it because it's required by law. And I believe the internal audit should be required by law in all the companies, in all the countries, because you saw the scandals that happened all over the world. You saw the scandals that happens in the corruption at the banks and financial institutions, and all these were due to weak internal audit function. If the internal auditors were strong enough, I can tell you 100% sure that these scandals that happened with the bank could have not have occurred at all. But because one of the main reasons that we don't have strong internal audit, or the internal audit function is not given the strength that it needs to execute its work, these scandals happen, and banks, they lost not only millions but billions of dirhams. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, I said previously in one of my previous lectures that if you are an internal auditor without the strength needed, your existence has no meaning. You should have the power to execute and to speak to the management and to implement, okay, in order to create a difference, okay? So the sustainability of the business, okay, should be linked with the power of the internal audit function, okay, in order for us to give valid recommendations. Now, IA planning has to be rethought in a more real risk-based approach. Now, the internal audit planning should be relevant. Means what? For me, myself, when I write points, I like to monetize these points. What does this mean? Not create money out of the points, but I want to create a value for each point. Let's say you would say that I recommend A, B, C, D, F, G. Okay, what does this mean for the reader? What is the impact of it? It should have, okay, this does not, it's not possible in all the cases, but in a lot of cases, it is possible. If you give a value to your observation, to your note, to your recommendation, the reader of the note, he will see the value of your work. We keep on talking about creating values, okay? But if we say that if you as management implement this recommendation, you will save X amount of money. They will see the value of your work, and they will be more motivated as management to implement your point, and your work will be appreciated more by the audit committee. So this is what I mean when I say that you put a value near each recommendation. Okay, so the real risk-based approach means at the planning process, okay, you see this risk, I need to study it because it can have a huge financial or reputational or managerial impact, okay? Then when it comes to the recommendation, I do the actual work and I do the report and I submit my findings and recommendations. You will put a value, okay? Because the value, when you assess the risk, you see there's a huge risk. So eventually you'll have a big value for the recommendation you are talking about, okay? So this is what I mean by a real risk-based approach. So you need to start by studying and by auditing the most relevant things. Don't go to the irrelevant things. Don't go to the traditional. I can write you like an internal audit report in 10 minutes, okay, of having these all traditional internal audit points that nobody care about them anymore. You want to give the management something relevant, something valid, and something related to the current situation, something that adds value, monetary value, or saves money for the company. This is what they need, and this is what we need to consider when we plan. When we plan, we need to say, this is the most important thing. We need to study it. Then when you give your recommendation, you will give a valuable and a valid recommendation. Now, the analytical procedures and the financial statements logic analysis, they are gaining more importance. What does this mean? Again, back to the bank's example. Now, in one of the cases, there was a bank that has given several millions of dollars of facilities to one of its clients, okay? and that client did not have enough collateral. They did not have enough assets to secure these loans. Now, if you think a simple check of financial statements will not uncover this, it will. It will. If you just analyze the financial statements, uh, okay, for this client that we have, you do have financial analyst in the bank, okay? Uh, X amount of assets, okay, can grant me X amount of facilities from the bank. So that logic analysis, okay, can save us a lot of money. But if this logic analysis was not made in purpose, this means we are talking about fraud and we are talking about other areas that we need to investigate. But I'm talking about the normal, the standard internal audit work, other than fraud related. Because if I see something as an internal auditor and I don't report it, this means I'm committing fraud and I'm just benefiting from the situation. This is something else. I'm talking about I'm a decent internal auditor and I'm trying to do my job as good as it should be. When I do this simple financial analysis, okay, I will discover a lot of things. So what about if I make it a built-in thing in my internal audit planning and the major thing to make that logic analysis? I tell you what, from my experience, the logic analysis will give you more than 50% of the points. More than 50% of the points without doing any one of these individual steps. You know that you have like another program for finance, HR, all the logic analysis will give you 50% of the points. I promise you. Try it. Now, the scope needs to be agreed with the whole top management team and the audit. Now, this is a very, very crucial thing. Here I'm talking about the importance of developing the internal audit plan, okay, with the management. And now in the COVID era, it became more important and more relevant. When you start developing the internal audit plan, you start by sitting with the managers one by one. You start with sitting with finance, with procurement, with HR, with the GM, board members, and so on. You need to see what is the actual need of the business. You need to identify what are the main things that you need to plan for. Now, in a pandemic situation, you will have very specific necessities and very specific areas of focus that you need to focus on. This you will not know yourself as an internal auditor because you are not expert in all fields of your business, but you would rather get this information from these people who has this specific information because it's related to their departments. So the plan, I believe, and when I tried it, it was much more fruitful and much more powerful and much more engaging to all the management team to work with you. You can make out of the management team auditors if you develop the plan along with them. If you address their issues, their department issues, and their concerns. Now, in this situation, it's even more important because you and them are more vulnerable because the economic situation is more sensitive than it used to be. So we need to sit with management one by one. We need to develop the plan with them, and we need to discuss the point with them. Now all the clients that we have, the outsourced internal clients, we don't issue any report without agreeing with the auditees. There is no point of pointing fingers saying you said wrong, you said no. This is like so old style, and we cannot do it anymore. You just have to agree with the people that this is okay and a wrong thing, and we can correct that in doing ABC. Because eventually, again, I'm talking about the standard situation where you have internal audits function doing their job properly, where you have management concerned about developing the business and so on. We're not talking about fraud situations and so on. I'll just talk to you about fraud just in a few minutes. So in this situation, your concern and the management concern that you are auditing is the same. So you need to be sitting with them and develop the plan with them and put the objectives with them, address whether something related to COVID-19, something related to termination of employees, something related to any part of the business. You need to sit and talk with them, and you agree with them on, the things that needs to be checked, and eventually you'll agree with them on the findings and recommendations that are most relevant to the work and objectives of the company. So this is a top priority, that you develop the plan and you implement it along with, the management team. Then after you agree on all these outcomes and recommendations, and you let them suggest their management response, so you complete the cycle. Then after, out of the issue tracker that you'll develop for all the points that you'll do, you will follow up the implementation of these issues with them. So you'll complete your cycle and you'll stay more relevant, especially in very vulnerable and sensitive situation, such as the situation that we are found in, that hopefully it will end in the near future. Now, I leave room now for you if you would like to ask questions. So please feel free to ask them.
Mr. Fahim, you received a couple of questions on your WhatsApp, if you don't mind to answer them.
Sure. Okay, so the first question is, you refer to prioritizing baby steps. Does this mean that if we are confident about sustainability, then we don't have to worry about having strong governance? No, actually, it could be a bit confusing, the way it was said. But again, now when we talk about baby steps, so back to basics, we're talking about prioritizing our continuity as a going concern. But this does not mean that we have to forget about governance, because governance is the main thing that can keep us moving. So I'm talking about putting the main importance on the sustainability and the ability to continue as a going concern, but keeping in mind that we do need to have strong governance, and we need because strong governance means that we have proper internal control structure. This means we'll be able to continue as a going concern in the future. So it's all interrelated. Okay, I hope this answers the question. Now the second question is, once the pandemic is over, are we going back to business as usual when it comes to IA planning and execution? Now, I tell you why. We are going back to business, but not as usual. We are changing the usual. Even though I don't really like the term new normal, but anyway, we have to use it because it's like becoming something international. Now, the new normal for us, internal auditor, is to be able to say that we have to put in mind that we can have a pandemic situation. We need to put in, this is why doing the planning. This is why the planning for the scope of our next audit. We have to keep in mind that we can have a pandemic situation. We can have major economic issues. Now, when you consider this, you will be able to plan your audit in a more cautious way. So when we are back in business after the pandemic, hopefully very soon, we will be more aware of the possible risk that can happen. Okay. Now, question number 3, and how does the current pandemic situation impacted the way internal auditors do their work? Now, this is an excellent question. How did it impact the way we impacted our work? Now, number one, it shows the importance of it. It became very important to have a strong digital platform, that we need to digitize our work as internal auditors. You saw how in by the end of March until I'm talking about Dubai, until beginning of June, we stayed, working remotely from home, and we had some like this 20, 30% percentage that can work from office. But anyway, we were mainly working from home. So imagine if I don't have a strong digital platform at home. I don't have strong internet. I don't have my laptop. I don't have my softwares. I cannot do anything. I should be able to work, to do my work from anywhere. I should be able, so this needs a digital platform at work. And you should have digital, for sure, in the office, but you should have that same digital platform and digital capabilities wherever you go. So mainly we're talking about home and office. Okay. So the importance of having this digital platform and the possibility of having a strong impact due to a pandemic, due to difficult economic issues. So this needs to be considered when we plan for our next year internal audit scope. So number four, what was the main change in IA profession as a result of the pandemic? Now the main change is you see more companies, okay, outsourcing the internal audit function. Now, the main thing in the profession that you have much more outsourced internal audit than what you had in 2019. This is what I see in the market. Now, the people they are saying, okay, we want to use the maximum number of expertise possible, and but we cannot afford to appoint these people, so let us outsource. Okay, so we'll bring to XYZ company and bring experienced internal auditors from them. This will make sure that experts will be working on our internal audit assignments and at a lesser cost. So this was a major change after the pandemic, that you have more outsourced internal audit, and as I said before, more use of digital platforms, more use of internal audit softwares, GRC softwares, robotics softwares that my colleagues were talking about. So these were, some of the major changes that we had. Okay, so now thank you very much for your attention, and thank you IIA UAE and your excellencies, for your for listening and for attending and for your care about the profession. And I hope that we'll meet in the near future in person. Thank you, Yasmin, and all the IIA team for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Faham, for this very important session. We really appreciate your effort and your participation and everything. Thank you for all the audience. Now we have to go to the main auditorium, which will be able to join the last session of Miss Nancy Haig. She is a keynote speaker. Please join us at the auditorium. And for the time being, we'll start at 3. You might visit our sponsor booth at the exhibition area. And thank you. See you there. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.